thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and especially to Mayor Kazmark for uh, hosting us originally in Woodland Park and now virtually in Woodland Park. We appreciate your leadership. And of course, Woodland Park has been hit hard by the pandemic, as so many other communities have as well. And I appreciate the rest of our fellow New Jerseyans who will share their stories with you shortly. I appreciate them sharing their personal stories to make the case of why this legislation is important to become law. So I'm here to say that help will soon be on the way. This month, we will likely reach a grim and heart-wrenching milestone. Over 500,000 lives across America that have been claimed by COVID. In most cases, families never got to kiss them goodbye or say a final prayer at their bedside. And on top of the grief that is ripping through the nation, the economic suffering unleashed by the pandemic has been pretty outstanding. Many big corporations are richer now than when the pandemic started, but millions remain out of work, and too many small businesses have closed their doors forever. State and local governments are struggling to keep police officers, firefighters, teachers, and other essential public employees on the job. And the stubborn inequities ingrained in our economy before the crisis placed a disproportionate share on the suffering of minority communities. Meanwhile, we remain locked in a race against the coronavirus. Transmission appears to be slowing, but new strains are spreading. And the longer we allow it to spread, the more it will mutate and threaten the efficacy of our vaccines. So we cannot give in to the temptation to take off our masks and end social distancing. We are nowhere near where we need to be. The Trump administration claimed 20 million Americans would be vaccinated by December, but by year's end, only 2 million people received their shots. So I'm encouraged by the Biden administration's recent efforts to ramp up distribution and acquire more doses. But the fact is, we need to enhance our distribution system to get more vaccinations into arms throughout New Jersey and the nation. We need bold action and fast. Throughout the impeachment trial last week, House and Senate Democrats worked together to continue finalizing President Biden's American Rescue Plan. We will not repeat the mistakes we made a decade ago when we bent over backwards to please our GOP colleagues and watered down our stimulus, which subjected people to a longer, drawn-out recovery from the Great Recession. Not this time. This time, we will give President Biden the resources necessary to defeat the pandemic, help struggling families, and turn our economy around. Economists with Moody Analytics say that the American Rescue Plan would allow us to reach full employment by the start of 2022 and create 7.5 million jobs before the end of the year. But without further action, the Congressional Budget Office says our recovery could take 4 years. That's unacceptable to me, and I bet most New Jerseyans who believe this catastrophe has dragged on long enough. The American Rescue Plan puts us on a path to end the pandemic once and for all. It includes many priorities I have spent the past year fighting for. First, it will create the kind of supercharged federal vaccination effort the last administration should have started but didn't. Right now, our communities don't have the resources to quickly and equitably vaccinate people, and frequent supply shortages for vaccinations and testing equipment hold us back. The American Rescue Plan includes $20 billion for a national vaccine program, $50 billion for testing, $30 billion in disaster relief funding to secure more PPE, and $10 billion to expand domestic manufacturing of pandemic supplies. Secondly, we help struggling families and small businesses survive this crisis. Across America, more than 1 in 3 households and half of Black and Hispanic households are struggling to pay for basic expenses like rent, groceries, and healthcare. In addition to extending unemployment benefits, this bill provides working people with another $1,400 direct payment on top of the $600 that we passed last December. It's not only a lifeline to families, but also it helps to jumpstart our economy and our recovery. We also expand the child tax credit and expand the earned income tax credit, which would lift over half of the poor children in our country out of poverty and help address racial and social economic disparities that have been magnified during the course of this pandemic. Many of these families will also benefit from the help I fought to include for renters and homeowners. The American Rescue Plan includes $25 billion to help renters and small landlords, $10 billion to struggling homeowners so that they can keep their home and stay in it, and $5 billion to combat homelessness. The latest version also invests $100 million in housing counseling that I have championed to help homeowners navigate government programs, negotiate with their lenders, and avoid foreclosure. And on the small business front, I'm proud to say that the plan includes direct assistance for the restaurant industry, thanks to a bill that I've been pushing called the Restaurant Act. Our restaurants have been hit incredibly hard by this crisis, and it's fair to say that past initiatives were not catered to their needs. This legislation's $25 billion revitalization fund will help save the family-owned restaurants, the mom and pop delis, the bars and eateries that make New Jersey such a great place to get a bite to eat. So again, we're talking real targeted relief to working families and the small businesses that define our communities. Thirdly, the legislation includes $350 billion in direct aid to state and local governments. As you all know, soaring coronavirus response costs and plummeting tax revenues and the Trump administration's hands-off approach to this pandemic wreak fiscal havoc on our states and communities. That's why last summer I introduced a bipartisan piece of legislation called the SMART Act to shore up our state and local governments. And while governors and mayors from both parties supported it, we couldn't get our Republican colleagues to consider it. Fortunately, it's a new day, and I'm proud to say that direct, flexible funding to every state, county, and municipality is in the American Rescue Plan. At the end of the day, we're hoping to bring home around $6.5 billion for our state government and $3 billion to flow directly to New Jersey counties and municipalities, but it still has to make its way through the Senate. In Woodland Park, that funding would help the mayor and council address the pandemic, pay essential workers, bolster critical services like the volunteer fire department. According to the Congressional Budget Office, funding for states and local communities provides the biggest bang for the buck when it comes to stimulating our economy. And, I cannot imagine that the height of irony would be that those who helped us get to the most difficult parts of the pandemic and who we still need, first responders, public health nurses, our health departments, and others, would be on the unemployment line instead of on the front lines meeting the challenges of the pandemic. I've also fought to secure $30 billion for our public transit agencies, so they're poised to get New Jerseyans back to work once the pandemic subsides. We know that even the most essential workers that have kept us safe while we were at home at times and they were working, doing the dangerous jobs, they use public transit to be able to get around. And this bill also includes something our parents, students, and teachers care about deeply, and that's reopening schools safely. Billions will go helping our schools improve ventilation systems, provide educators with PPE, help to reduce class sizes, address learning losses, and more. Everyone wants our schools to reopen, but we need to make sure that we can do it safely and equitably. So let me close and say that many ask if this bill will pass with bipartisan support. I hope it does, because these ideas have bipartisan support across the country. At the end of the day, however, I believe most people, especially here in New Jersey, care more about Congress getting something done than whatever legislative process gets it done. It's simple. People want us to do our jobs. And while I sincerely hope that Republicans will join us, and there are negotiations with them to try to see if we can get our colleagues to support it, I think it'd be hard to vote against direct payments to workers, tax relief for families, help for schools to safely reopen, and so on. People want to get back to their lives. To me, that's what this bill is all about. The American Rescue Plan is about rescuing the American way of life. so our children and grandchildren can learn in classrooms instead of on computer screens, so we can gather together with loved ones instead of worrying about them getting sick, so that we can join hands in our houses of worship to uplift each other in prayer, so that we can reconnect with each other and restore a sense of community and common purpose in towns and cities, large and small, across the nation. That's the kind of unity that I am hoping for. It's the kind of unity that matters. It's the kind of unity I'm working to try to achieve. With that, let me turn it over to Mayor Kazmark, who's just one of our exceptional local leaders in our state.
Senator, thank you and good afternoon. And thank you for your leadership in the United States Senate supporting the American Rescue Plan. And also, I want to extend my thanks on behalf of our 12,000 residents here in Woodland Park for highlighting our municipality and the challenges that we've faced over the last year with regard to the COVID-19 public health emergency. 5 issues that stand out the most, at least for myself, my members of the council, and our administrative staff here in the borough. And first is the need for additional vaccinations. Under the direction of the county health department, the stellar leadership of our county administrator, Anthony DeNova, and the board of commissioners, we have a distribution site here in Woodland Park on Route 46. Unfortunately, many of our residents are extremely frustrated with the inability to make appointments due to not having enough doses available to be administered. At this point, the amount of doses don't come anywhere close to the demand that is needed for people to become vaccinated. The second issue that I want to address is revenue shortfall with regard to the municipality. The CARES Act that the senator previously mentioned that was approved last year helped municipalities throughout New Jersey with regard to expenses incurred that weren't foreseen with regard to COVID. What that act did not address was revenue shortfalls. We are probably somewhere between $160,000 and $180,000 short of our revenue projections from last year due to shortages in the municipal court, in our construction department, which slowed down last year, and also with regard to interest on investments. One of the most pressing issues that I've shared with Senator Menendez is the shortfalls that have been experienced by our volunteer fire and EMS departments. The West Patterson Volunteer Fire Department maintains 3 firehouses in our municipality. We are responsible as a borough to support them with supplying equipment and vehicles. However, they maintain their own buildings, 90% of which are supported by fundraising efforts, which have all but dried up due to the pandemic. So any assistance that can be brought to our volunteer first responders, who, as the senator alluded to, really got us through the height of this emergency, we can't let them down. We have to continue to support them and make sure that they are able to answer the call and thrive as volunteer emergency responders. With regard to reopening our schools, here in Woodland Park, about 40% of our student population is in school for in-person learning, while 60% of our students have been virtual since last March. Obviously, our school board and our administration are motivated to try to build the infrastructure to bring all of our students back to school in a safe environment, and probably most importantly, to restore the social interactions that our children so desperately need. You know, I remember as a parent myself of an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old, I worried about them being on the computer, being on the tablet, being on the Xbox too much. But our students have really been pushed, our children have really been pushed into those environments to actually interact with their peers. I can't wait to see them back on an athletic field interacting in that capacity and as they sit in their classrooms at school. With regard to unemployment, aid to renters, and aid to homeowners, I can't highlight this need enough. We are hovering just under 4,000 unemployment claims in the last year in a town with a population of 12,000 people. So any assistance that our residents can get to continue to be able to meet their needs, pay their bills, and support their families in the form of unemployment, rent assistance, or homeowner assistance, so desperately needed. And finally, we need to support our small business community. This afternoon, we have with us a local business owner who actually just cut a ribbon opening up his new deli in town right before the pandemic began, my good friend Sal Berardi. But our salons, our small businesses, our industrial areas, and Sal's Deli need the support from the federal government to keep afloat. The last thing that we want to see as we travel through the town at the end of the pandemic is a bunch of empty storefronts. So Senator, I appreciate your leadership again on all these important issues affecting our community and all the communities throughout the state and the country. We look forward to working with you in partnership to try to achieve not only the passage of this bill, but the full implementation of it to help all the folks in our community. So thank you again.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your leadership. It's extraordinary, and we appreciate you sharing the insights of what it would mean to a community like Woodland Park. Let me now turn it over to Sal Berardi, who is the owner of the Sal's Deli in Woodland Park, as you just heard the mayor say. Sal, thank you for joining us and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mayor, for those kind words. And as far as Southtown Deli is concerned, and me and my family, I had a great job. I had a great job. Things were going good. I just felt like, maybe there's something more I can do, keep the family together closer, start a business, something I've done my whole entire life before I got into the job I was in before this. Love cooking, love the food business. You get to talk to people. It's just the communication with the public. Just love it. But like Mayor Kaczmarek said, 5 months after the ribbon cutting, the world had a different plan. We tried our best, and we keep on trying our best every single day just to keep the doors open. But you hear stories every single day. Friends of mine, when you're in the restaurant business, the food business, you know a lot of people, you hear a lot of stories, and people in business for 30 years, 40 years, 15, 20 employees just having to close their doors. And for me, in my business, we didn't really have the opportunity. Like I said, 5 months came in and we got hit with the pandemic, and we've been fighting ever since. But for me, we never really had the opportunity to hire as many people. So we're not in the same boat as a lot of people. So am I blessed? I don't see myself to be blessed in that manner, but we're not fighting that same fight that a lot of my friends, a lot of people in small businesses are fighting, just to try to keep their doors open, try to pay people, just to earn a living. And for me, we keep on fighting every day. I wake up, I see my kids, and that's my fight every day. So we keep on trying, but we have a good community here in Woodland Park. Good mayor. The mayor does a lot for the community, and the community does a lot for its small businesses. They keep on coming in, they do their, they try their best, but everyone's got their hands tied. So, we keep on fighting, but I appreciate this. I appreciate all the help, not just for me, for other small businesses. And, everyone's got to keep on fighting. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Sal. And I'm going to have to stop by and get a provolone.
There you go.
And
there you go. A little prosciutto, a little provolone, a little roasted peppers, fresh mutts. There you go.
Sounds great. All right. I will drag the mayor with me. So, all right. Thank you very much for sharing your story. And
thank you.
Here's what happens. You start off, an opportunity to be your own business person and lead an effort that also can help feed your family, and then fate comes along. So we got to keep you open, and that's what the bill is all about.
I appreciate that.
To Shivanthi Crawford of East Orange. She is a COVID-19 survivor. We're thrilled to see that you are well, having survived, who has had to rely on unemployment and food assistance to get by in these difficult times. Shivanthi, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Yes, my name is Shivanthi Crawford, and my husband Travis and I lives in East Orange, and I'm a registered nurse. Up until recently, I worked at an insurance company in Brooklyn as a staff educator. Both my husband and I, we caught COVID-19 early last year in April. I was hospitalized and was on a ventilator for 62 days, in a total of 102 days spent in the hospital and rehab until I was discharged to home. and I'm still on supplemental oxygen on a needed basis, and I have trouble breathing with minimal exertion. My vocal cords are scarred, making it difficult for me to speak or breathe due to intubation complication, which requires further intervention. And of course, I had to go to rehab to relearn how to walk and use my limbs that I still have right side weakness from placement when I was in the ventilator. I've been on unpaid disability ever since. My husband lost his job and now he's at home and he's my full-time caretaker until I get better. And thankfully, he's able to collect unemployment benefit, and it's our only income right now. And we have applied for rental assistance for the first time in our lives. And we've also qualified for food assistance through the SNAP program. And before COVID-19, we both had good jobs and made a decent living. And we never thought we'd ever be in this position. And as long as I'm in this condition, I don't know when I'll be able to return to work. And I wanted to thank Senator Menendez for fighting for people like us. And we are not alone. And there are so many others who have been hit hard by this pandemic. And I really don't know what would happen to us if these federal programs were to suddenly end. And I really hope the Congress acts quickly to pass this bill so we can get the help we need to survive. And thank you so much, Mayor and the Senator, allowing us to speak and take part in this. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for sharing your personal story. Never easy. And I'm glad to see you're doing better, but it's helping individuals like yourselves and your husband who never relied upon any type of assistance before and now find themselves to ultimately need some help. And this is what this is all about. I have seen people for the first time in their lives on a food pantry line or needing some type of assistance, worked hard every day, never needed anything, and now they're in a different set of circumstances. So thank you for dramatizing that. And I believe help is on its way. Let me have us hear now from Paulina Price of Fort Lee, who's also faced some hardships during this pandemic and is in a mortgage forbearance issue. Paulina?
Hi, how you doing, guys? Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for all the support you providing for us. So I'm an independent travel agent, and you can understand that my industry suffered tremendously. We're still suffering. We don't know when it's going to come back. The corporate business completely gone because none of the corporation allowed to travel now. The leisure is not there either because people cannot afford to travel. It's too many restrictions. So we don't know when it's going to come back. Hopefully when everybody's going to be vaccinated, the country is going to be open. My partner, he is in social security disability. So I'm the sole provider for the family. And I'm out of work since March of last year. And if not for the unemployment, and definitely for the federal assistance would be extremely hard. I'm 40 years in the country. It's my first time on unemployment. I never had help from anybody, ever. It's the first time. I do have an apartment, and thank God for the assistance that we can defer the mortgage. I was able to defer my mortgage for 6 months. And I understand the law will provide now a little bit more assistance so we can defer the mortgage a little bit farther because it's just impossible to pay the mortgage with all the bills. Okay, it's enough to survive from the money we're getting from assistance. But I really hope it will continue because it's so many in my industry, because hospitality, it's a huge industry, absolutely huge. On the top of it, I was diagnosed with the breast cancer last week. So I have to go through the surgery and radiation, which I know it's going to be fine, but it's hard during the financial situation, during the pandemic, no work. So I thank you, Senator, for standing for us. And I think it's going to be huge help, not only to me, but a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my friends who's still suffering, who still don't have the work. With the new bill and with the assistance that the federal can continue until the country will come back, so we all can stand on our feet. And I'm sure I'm speaking for a lot of people. We would like to work, we want to work, but just not available at this time. So we definitely need support of the government. And thank you very much for fighting for us. And I hope you will pass it to your colleague in Washington that what you're doing is essential for all of us. And I together with Sal, my son has a restaurant. He's a partner in a restaurant in Jersey City. And unfortunately, he's in the same situation as Sal. You know, they're trying to buy day by day. So even he cannot help me and I cannot help him. So unfortunately, we're all more or less in the same situation. Thank you very much for helping us.
Well, Paulina, thank you very much. I'm sorry to hear about your diagnosis, but I'm sure it will be fine, and I will keep you in my prayers.
Thank you. Thank you.
40 years and never needing any help. That's the example of what so many people are facing at this point in time. So thank you for sharing your personal story. It's very compelling. And last but not least is Sylvia Lysandra Ferdella, who I've worked with in the past on health issues, but is here today as the owner of H2 Ocean Seafood Restaurant in Cedar Knolls.
How are you, Sarah Menendez?
Good, good.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Kazmark. And I want to thank the entire panel, Sal, Paulina, Shavante. I know what you're feeling emotionally, mentally, physically, financially, spiritually. I'm praying for all of you because you are part of my team now. We are in great hands with Senator Menendez. I can tell you firsthand, here's a man, forget about politics. He cares about us. He cares about women. He cares about minorities. He cares about all of us, our families. So we have a general that's going to take care of us. I found out not too long ago, I grew up in West Patterson, and my late uncle Lorenzo started a pizzeria over 35 years ago. He's passed away, but Sam and Nico took over, and they've been the owners since then, and they just closed, I think, in October. And that's very depressing because Woodland Park was just such a booming town with small businesses. We've all been given a few minutes to talk about 11 months of destruction and decimation, financially, emotionally, spiritually. I'm speaking to everyone, not only as a restaurant owner, I'm speaking to everyone as someone who also suffered COVID, who had to close my restaurant for 2 weeks, 13 days of fever, in and out of the hospital. Still not doing well. Shivanti, I pray for you. You're going to make it, I promise you. But it's tough. Closing in a month, December, that should be the best month for any restaurateur. It's where we make all our money, booking parties and having people come and celebrate the new year or the upcoming year or the holidays. I'm the owner with my husband, Michael Ferdella of H2 Ocean Restaurant in Raw Bar in Cedar Knolls. And before the pandemic, our business was not only booming, it was thriving. We're located in a corporate area where there's so many pharmaceutical companies, law firms that are now vacant. They're eerily vacant. Think about all, like Paulina said, people coming in from out of town, you know, working for these pharmaceutical companies and working for all these private companies that would come and dine at my restaurant. You couldn't get in my restaurant from Friday to Saturday. Good luck trying to get in unless you're Senator Menendez. And now I offer my invitation to all of you to dine in my restaurant on me. But I can tell you firsthand how it affected everybody. As Senator Menendez said, I've seen people come to my restaurant never needing help in a beautiful 3-piece suit that needed food, and there was no shame in asking help. We donated over 750 pounds of dry goods to the Queen of Peace in North Arlington because they needed food. I continue to give. I continue to have my staff come in. I had 42 employees, and now after that, we were down to 12. And I didn't know what to do because many of them didn't qualify for unemployment. Many of them had rent. So what did I do? I took my savings and paid for their months of rent, the ones that have been with me for 6 years. It was tough. It's tough now. I mean, you drive around the areas, you see all the Bayer, Celogene, Novartis, they're empty. You go down to Marriott, you know, the parking lot was filled. There's nobody booking rooms. And, you know, the indoor, the outdoor, the capacity, no matter what government changes, we can't change people's minds, their fear factor. They're still afraid to dine out. They're still afraid to fly. And I don't know how long we'll need that lifeline. I mean, today's number may differ from next week's number or next month's number. And we don't know. As Senator Menendez, we need a lifeline, you know, and all of us need a lifeline. And that's the reality. If the pandemic was to end tomorrow, I don't think people will rush out to restaurants to start dining out and start booking trips. Would they like to? Absolutely. But we need more vaccines. We need more people to play it safe. You know, we're spending money, all the little money that we've gotten. I've been blessed. I've gotten both PPPs. First one I received was when Congress passed it. Recently, as a few weeks ago, I received the second round. I'm one of the fortunate. I can't tell you how many of my colleagues are suffering that either closed this past weekend after Valentine's Day or closing within the next 2 weeks. And these are seasoned restaurateurs. These are not people who just opened, who don't know what they're doing. You know, we've done everything. We've set up barriers, PPE. We've set up, we spent money in buying filters to clean the air every 30 minutes. And still we can't get diners to come out and feel comfortable dining in. It's not their fault, right? It's not anybody's fault. But I can tell you this, I am blessed, and we are all blessed to have Senator Menendez pushing for this bill because he is a man of his words. As he said prior, he helped pass legislation years ago, the Mothers Act, with women dealing with postpartum depression. I never thought it would pass, and Senator Menendez never gave up. Sure, I annoyed him a little bit here and there, but he never gave up. And we trust in him. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, he does the right thing for all of us. And as I said in the beginning of this, Shivanti, Paulina, Sal, you are welcome in my restaurant as a guest, or whatever your family needs, whatever goods you need, do not feel ashamed. You know how to reach me. Yeah, I will do whatever I have to do. You are in my prayers. And Mayor Kazmark, whatever your town needs, pantry, whatever you need. I know we're located in Morris County, but my heart is located in Woodland Park, West Patterson, that is. But we all need to stick together. All of us need to back this plan up, to back Senator Menendez. Will we get some backsplash? Who cares? But we need to, you know, forge ahead, and we need to support each other. And again, thank you so much, Senator Menendez. Thank you, Sal. Thank you, Paulina. Thank you, Shivanti, for sharing your very personal story. I know how hard it is. I know how you suffered physically and emotionally and mentally, financially. I'm there with you. I can tell you my business prior to this, the numbers were staggering, and they went down over 90%. And who picks and chooses to say who has a job and who doesn't have a job? You know, I cried, I still cry. There's nights that I can't bring back my workers. They call me up and there's just no work. And that's the other thing, Senator, if you can help me out in this one, and I'll keep it really short now. The PPP is great, but I think restaurants and small businesses need some flexibility for their monies. Like, can we buy equipment? Can we buy barriers, tents, more PPE? I mean, we were giving the PPP, but a certain percentage had to be given to employees, well, we don't have that business to hire them all back. So we need the flex. I hear it from all my colleagues. Yeah, the money's good and we want it to be forgiven, but there has to be some flexibility, where we could spend money in putting back into the restaurant. And, as in days like this, I can tell, Sal, this, people who own small businesses, we're paying for people to plow our parking lot. So we're out of a few $100s here that we're not even open for business. So I think we need some flexibility. And again, thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Senator. God bless you. Thank you, Mayor Kazmak, and everybody on this panel. Thank you.
You.
Well, thank you, Sylvia. And obviously, you haven't changed about your tremendous willingness to give back, even in the midst of challenges of your own. So I think this whole group of New Jerseyans shows what the state is all about. We have each other's back, and at the end of the day, we work hard to make sure everybody can get ahead. With that, and on the flexibility, I hear you, and I think some of the legislation that is moving through, particularly as it relates to the Restaurants Act, creates that flexibility, at least more flexibility. Maybe not everything you'd like to see, but more flexibility. With that, Steve, are we doing questions?
Yep. So for the press who are on there, we have time for some Q&A. If you have a question, please put it in the chat box and we'll get to as many questions as we can in the limited time that we have. So while people are typing in, Senator, we do have one from Jonathan Salant from New Jersey Advanced Media. He wants to know if there are votes in the Senate for the 1,400 stimulus checks that end at $100,000 for singles, $200,000 for couples, and are there the votes for $15 minimum wage?
Well, we're still in the midst of gathering votes. I think the Budget Committee will pass its legislation this week. Then when we return to the Senate this coming week, and then we will be figuring out the process on the floor. All of the relevant committees that have jurisdiction over different parts of the legislation we just talked about are putting their parts of the package together. So, for example, the Senate Finance Committee, where I sit on, is dealing with this question of the checks and unemployment. The Senate Banking Committee is dealing with housing, foreclosure, rental assistance, and whatnot. So we're putting all the elements of the president's plan together legislatively. I think there will be the votes for $1,400. The question will be, what is the cutoff point in terms of who qualifies, who does not? Obviously, coming from a high income and high cost state, I'm an advocate of the higher levels to include more people, because maybe 100,000 in some part of the country is, significantly better off. But in New Jersey, it's as middle class as it gets. So, that's some of the challenges that we'll have in refining it. But I think, hopefully we will get there. On the $15 minimum wage, I don't know that budget reconciliation, which it seems like where we're headed at the end of the day, whether it will pass the technical, I'm not going to bother everybody on the call here with this, but this is a budgetary provision that if we cannot get enough bipartisan support, allows us to move forward. It's been used in the past by our colleagues on the other side of the aisle. It may have to be used by us. The question is whether it will pass the technical thresholds to be included in reconciliation. That remains to be seen. I certainly believe in raising the minimum wage. I do have concerns about the tip element of the minimum wage issue, because I think, as we just heard, restaurants are already facing a tremendous challenge to being able to sustain themselves. And I think the timing for something like that is not particularly good, but we'll see whether or not we can achieve it crossing the technical threshold to be included in reconciliation.
Once again, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. We have a follow-up question for the other panelists. What would the $1,400 stimulus checks mean to you and your families?
Am I on mute? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, God, that was scary. I'm sorry. Sometimes I should be put on mute. Uh, $1,400 for me, for anyone would be incredible, but we can't be put in a one size fits all. It's just, some people need more, right? Listen, anything I can get, I'm grateful for. But the reality is, 1,400 is a start, right? And there's going to be some people, some families that will certainly need more. But I think we should not scoff at that. That's from, 1,400 is a good number, a starting point.
Paulina or Shivanti?
I think it's definitely gonna help. Like in my case, I have to pay tax on my apartment, so I definitely gonna help me at least to pay the tax. So it's gonna be good for the town. It's good for me. It's a good amount. I understand that it's not enough maybe for some family. I have a friend who she work at a store and she's living on the $300 a week, and she literally borrowing from every single person. So I personally, from this 1,400, will take some money and give her to help her as well, and all my friends will do. So I think it's definitely gonna help, and people helping each other. I know for a fact. So it's a good amount, at least to people, to dug some holes that they have, some money that they need to pay. They need to pay for the phone or for the insurance, for something. So it's definitely gonna help them.
Yes, it will definitely help for us because I got multiple medical appointments. That with that comes co-payment, and of course, we need our car so to take me to these appointments. So we could use that to pay for our insurance and co-payments and whatever other needs that we have. So thank you.
Anyone else, Steve?
As of now, no other questions. So if you want to wrap it up, Senator.
Okay, well, thank you all again for sharing your stories. Never easy to talk about one's personal life and what they're facing, but I think your stories make a powerful demonstration of why the legislation is needed. And next week we'll go back to Washington to champion all of this, and hopefully soon in this coming month, actually pass legislation before, for example, unemployment benefits run out and other people have essential needs and choices between keeping your business open or not is faced. So, and for mayors like Mayor Kaczmarek having to decide what he does in his community, how long he can keep it on hold is a big question. So thank you all for sharing your stories, incredibly powerful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All
Thank
righty.
you, Senator. Be safe.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you, Senator.
You all be safe too. Thank you.
Stephen and Jillian.